I didn't lose consciousness for long, just long enough for my mother-in-law to steal my daughter's name. 6 hours. That's how long I was gone after the emergency C-section. 6 hours of darkness, machines beeping, doctors rushing, my husband terrified I might not wake up. While my body was stitched back together, while I lay helpless and silent, someone else made a choice that was never hers to make. When I woke up, everyone smiled and told me how lucky I was. You're safe. The baby's healthy. No one mentioned the paperwork. No one mentioned the signature. 2 weeks later, an official envelope arrived in the mail. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, my hands still shaking from exhaustion, smiling as I opened it, until my eyes landed on the name printed at the top. It wasn't my baby's name. It was my mother-in-law's. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about a name. It was about control, and she had crossed a line she could never uncross. Daniel and I chose our daughter's name long before I ever got pregnant. We were lying on the floor of our tiny apartment, surrounded by moving boxes, talking about the future the way young couples do, half joking, half dreaming. When the name Ella May came up, everything just stopped. It felt right in a way I couldn't explain. Ella, I said softly. Daniel smiled. I like that. It sounds gentle. May was my grandmother's name, I told him. She raised me after my parents died. She was the only person who ever made me feel safe. Daniel reached for my hand. Then that's it. If we ever have a daughter, that's her name. Years later, when I finally saw the positive pregnancy test, there was never any debate. She was Ella May. She always had been. When we told Daniel's mother, Linda, at the baby shower, she smiled a little too tightly. That's nice, she said, nodding. Very modern. I noticed she didn't say beautiful or perfect. Just nice. As the months went on, small comments started piling up, tiny enough that I felt silly questioning them. She'd pat my stomach and say, "How's my baby today?" She'd laugh when I corrected her. "Oh, relax, I'm just excited." Once, while folding tiny onesies, she said casually, "Names feel different once you see the baby. Sometimes parents realize they made the wrong choice." I remember looking up at her and asking, "What do you mean?" She waved her hand. "Oh, nothing. I'm sure you'll figure it out when she gets here." Something about that sentence made my chest tighten. Still, I told myself I was being hormonal. Linda had strong opinions about everything, from how we arranged our furniture to how long pasta should boil, but she was Daniel's mother. I wanted peace. I wanted family harmony. At every appointment, every ultrasound, I whispered her name to my belly. "Ella May, idesai kiatli." "She's going to be perfect," Daniel would reply. By the time I was 8 months pregnant, we had it printed on the nursery wall, embroidered on a blanket, written in my journal 100 times. Ella May wasn't just a name. It was a promise, a piece of my past, a piece of our future. I had no idea how fragile that promise was, or how quickly someone else would try to erase it. Labor wasn't supposed to go like that. I had done everything right, the breathing exercises, the birth plan printed and highlighted, the hospital bag packed weeks early. I kept telling myself my body knew what to do. Then my blood pressure dropped. I remember a nurse's voice suddenly sharp. "Her vitals are unstable." Daniel's hand tightened around mine. "Emily." I tried to answer him, but the room started spinning. Lights blurred. Someone said the words emergency C-section, and suddenly everything moved too fast. They wheeled me down the hallway under harsh, white lights. I caught one last glimpse of Daniel's face, pale, terrified, before the anesthesia burned through my arm. And then nothing. No sound. No light. No sense of time. I was gone for 6 hours, while doctors worked to stop the bleeding, while my body lay open on an operating table, while my daughter took her first breaths without me there to whisper her name. I didn't know any of that yet. When I finally came back, the world returned in fragments. The steady beep of machines, the dull ache in my abdomen, Daniel's voice breaking as he said, "You scared me." I tried to speak, but my throat was dry. All I could manage was a whisper. "Is she okay?" He nodded immediately. "She's perfect. Absolutely perfect." Relief washed over me so hard I started crying. That's when I noticed Linda standing in the corner of the recovery room. She rushed forward the moment my eyes opened. "Oh, thank God," she said dramatically. I was so worried. I was too exhausted to think clearly, too weak to question why she was there instead of giving us privacy. Daniel explained that while I was unconscious, Linda had offered to help. She said she'd take care of the hospital paperwork, he told me. I was focused on you and the baby. It just seemed easier. Linda nodded enthusiastically. "You needed to be with your wife," she said. "That's what really mattered." I remember squeezing Daniel's hand and murmuring, "Thank you," to her, because that's what you say when someone helps you. I didn't know she already had the forms. I didn't know she'd taken the clipboard from the nurse. Or that she'd crossed out words written in my husband's handwriting. Or that she'd picked up a pen and decided my silence gave her permission. All I knew was that I was alive, my baby was healthy, and I was too tired to imagine that anything could still go wrong. I fell asleep again, believing the hardest part was over. I had no idea the real damage had already been done, quietly, efficiently, in ink that would follow my daughter for the rest of her life. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning. I remember the exact moment because I was sitting at the kitchen table, rocking Ella in her bouncer with one foot while trying to drink my coffee before it went cold. Daniel was already back at work, and the house was quiet except for the soft clicking sound of the swing. The return address said Department of Vital Records. I smiled. Look, I said out loud to my daughter, like she could understand me. Your official paperwork is here. I slit the envelope open carefully, still half asleep, still trusting the world. Then I saw the name. I stared at the paper, waiting for my brain to catch up. Linda Grace. Not Ella May. Not even close. My chest tightened, so suddenly I thought something was wrong with my stitches.
No, he whispered. No, no, no.
I flipped the page, scanning it wildly, convinced I was missing something. A typo. A middle name error. Anything that made this make sense. But there it was. Clear. Final. Official. My mother-in-law's name. My hand started shaking so badly the paper rattled. Ella let out a small cry, startled by the sudden tension in my body, and I scooped her up instinctively. It's okay, I murmured, more to myself than to her. It's okay. I called Daniel immediately. What's wrong? He asked, already panicked. They didn't put her name, I said. My voice cracked. They put your mother's. Silence. Then, quietly. What do you mean? When he got home an hour later, we laid the birth certificate on the table between us like evidence in a crime. Daniel ran his hands through his hair. That's not what we wrote. I know, I said. I watched you fill it out. We drove to Linda's house that afternoon. She opened the door smiling, already holding a blanket embroidered with the wrong name in looping cursive. Oh good, she said brightly. I was hoping you'd stop by. Daniel didn't sit down. Mom, he said, holding up the paper. What is this? She glanced at it once, unimpressed. Oh that, she said. I fixed it. My heart dropped. You fixed it, I repeated. She sighed, like we were being difficult children. Ella is sweet, but it's not a strong name, she said. Linda Grace sounds professional. Respected. I was thinking about her future. I felt heat rush to my face. You named my baby after yourself, I said slowly. She shrugged. Families do that all the time. Daniel's voice rose. You changed legal documents without asking us. Linda crossed her arms. You were emotional. Emily was unconscious. Someone had to make a decision. Something inside me snapped. You stole her name, I said, my voice shaking. You erased my grandmother. Linda frowned. That name was old-fashioned anyway. And honestly,
Ella sounds childish.
she needs something that will age well. I looked down at my daughter sleeping against my chest, her tiny fingers curled into my shirt. In that moment, I understood something terrifying. Linda didn't see herself as helping. She saw herself as entitled. And she fully believed my silence, forced by surgery, was consent. That was when I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a takeover. I thought the worst part would be fixing the paperwork. I was wrong. The legal process was brutal. We were told it would take months, require a court order, and cost hundreds of dollars. We had to publish a notice in the local paper, fill out affidavits, and schedule a hearing with a judge, because one woman decided she knew better than two parents. But while we were drowning in forms and fees, Linda was busy doing something else entirely. She was rewriting the story. The first sign was Facebook. She posted a photo of my newborn wrapped in pink, her face barely visible, with a caption that made my stomach drop. Welcome to the world, little Linda Grace. Such an honor to have my granddaughter named after me. My phone started buzzing immediately. Did you change the name? Why didn't you tell us? That's such a big decision. I stared at the screen, frozen. She bought personalized blankets. A wooden name sign for the nursery. Tiny outfits embroidered with the wrong name stitched proudly across the chest. Every time she handed one to me, she smiled like she was daring me to say something. When I gently corrected her, her name is Ella May, she laughed. Oh, I know, she said. But you'll get used to it. Then came the phone calls. Daniel's aunt called, confused. His cousin asked if we were okay. My own mother called in tears, asking why she hadn't been told her granddaughter's name had changed. Linda had already explained everything for us. She told people we'd reconsidered after seeing the baby. That Ella didn't fit her face. That she'd helped us make the right decision when we were overwhelmed. She said you were struggling emotionally. Daniel told me one night, his voice tight. She told my uncle you might have postpartum depression. I felt sick. Not only had she taken my child's name, she was using my vulnerability to discredit me. Every correction I tried to make was brushed off as me being sensitive. Every boundary I attempted to set was framed as disrespect. You're pushing family away, she told Daniel. Emily is making this harder than it needs to be. I started doubting myself. Was I overreacting? Was this worth tearing the family apart? Then the bill arrived. $800. That was the cost of undoing her help. I sat on the couch that night, holding my daughter, staring at the invoice while tears slid silently down my face. I shouldn't have to fight this hard for her name, I whispered. Daniel knelt in front of me and took my hands. You're right, and we're not backing down. That was the moment everything shifted. Because Linda thought if she talked louder, posted more, cried harder, she'd win. She thought control worked the same way it always had. What she didn't know yet was that I was done being quiet. And if she wanted to tell her version of the story to the whole family, I was ready to tell mine too. The family gathering was supposed to be harmless. Just a casual weekend lunch at my mother-in-law's sister's house. Too many folding chairs, paper plates, and people talking over each other. Daniel said we should go, that avoiding it would only make Linda's story seem more believable. I nodded, even though my stomach had been in knots since morning. I wore a simple dress.
No makeup.
I wanted to look calm, reasonable. Nothing like the unstable, emotional daughter-in-law Linda had painted me to be. The moment we walked in, I felt it. The looks. Some people smiled too brightly. Others avoided my eyes. A few glanced at the baby carrier, and then quickly away, like they weren't sure what name they were allowed to say. Linda, on the other hand, was glowing. She stood near the center of the room, holding court, her voice loud and confident. When she spotted us, her face lit up. There's my baby, she exclaimed, stepping forward. Daniel shifted instantly, placing himself between her and the carrier. She's sleeping, he said evenly. Linda's smile faltered for half a second before snapping back into place. Well, of course, she said, lowering her voice dramatically. She's been such an angel, hasn't she? Little Linda Grace. The room went quiet. I felt heat rush to my face. My fingers clenched around the strap of the carrier. Her sister, Margaret, looked up sharply. Linda Grace, she repeated. Linda waved her hand dismissively.
Oh, yes.
That's her name now. Margaret frowned and turned to me. I thought you said Ella May? Every head turned. This was it. The moment Linda had been controlling for months. I swallowed. Her name is Ella May. Linda laughed, actually laughed. Oh, honey, don't do this here. My heart pounded. Don't do what? Confuse everyone, she said, shaking her head. We've already explained this. Daniel spoke up.
No.
You've explained your version. Linda's expression hardened. Daniel, please. This isn't the time. When would be the time? He asked quietly. Murmurs spread through the room. Margaret set down her plate. Linda, she said slowly, why don't you explain what's going on? Linda sighed theatrically. They were overwhelmed after the birth. Emily had a rough recovery. I stepped in to help. That's all. I felt something snap inside me. You changed my daughter's name while I was unconscious, I said, my voice shaking but loud enough for everyone to hear. The room froze. I didn't change it, Linda snapped. I corrected it. Margaret's eyes widened. You did what? Linda crossed her arms. Ella was a mistake. It sounded immature. I chose something better, something with family meaning. With your name, I said. Linda scoffed. And what's wrong with that? Plenty of families honor elders. You honored yourself, Daniel said. Linda turned on him. I raised you. I know what's best for this family. Silence fell heavy over the room. I looked around at the faces staring back at me, confused, uncomfortable, curious. For months, I said, my voice trembling, she's been telling people I agreed with this, that I changed my mind, that I'm unstable. Linda pointed at me. See? This is exactly what I mean. She's emotional. Margaret stepped forward then, her voice sharp.
No.
What I'm seeing is a grandmother who crossed a line. Linda's face flushed red. You don't understand. Margaret looked at her steadily. Then help us understand. Did you, or did you not alter legal paperwork without their consent? Linda opened her mouth, closed it, and in that hesitation, I saw something shift in the room. For the first time, Linda wasn't in control of the narrative. And I realized this wasn't the battle. This was just the warning shot. Because the truth hadn't fully come out yet. And when it did, Linda wouldn't be able to laugh it off. The silence in the room felt unbearable. No one reached for food. No one spoke. Every conversation had stopped mid-sentence, like someone had pressed pause on the entire family. Margaret didn't look away from Linda. Did you change the birth certificate without their permission? She asked again, slower this time. Linda let out a nervous laugh. It wasn't like that. The hospital made a mistake. That's not true, Daniel said. His voice cut through the room, calm but shaking underneath. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded stack of papers. My heart started pounding when I saw them. What are those? Margaret asked. Daniel unfolded them carefully and laid them out on the coffee table where everyone could see. That's the original form I filled out, he said.
Ella mai.
In my handwriting. He slid another page next to it. That's the official birth certificate that came in the mail, with the name crossed out. Then the last page. And that's the corrected version, after 3 months, court filings, and $800. A ripple went through the room. $800? Someone whispered. Linda's face went pale. You didn't have to go that far. Yes, we did, I said, my voice breaking. Because you refused to admit what you did. Linda turned on me. I was protecting her. From what? Margaret snapped. From a childish name, Linda shot back. From being judged. From having doors closed to her before she even grows up. I felt heat rush at my neck. You don't get to decide that, I said. She's not your child. Linda scoffed. You're too young to understand. You were emotional. You were unconscious. Someone had to think clearly. The room erupted. You used her surgery against her? That's insane. You committed fraud. Voices overlapped, rising and crashing into each other. Linda looked around wildly, trying to latch onto someone, anyone, for support. Everyone calm down, she cried. You're misunderstanding me. Margaret held up her hand.
No.
What I'm understanding is that you lied. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. I have screenshots, she said calmly. From your Facebook. Linda froze. Margaret read aloud. We realized Ella didn't suit her face. We asked Linda to help us choose a stronger name. Gasps filled the room. Another swipe. Such an honor to have my granddaughter named after me. Linda shook her head frantically. I was proud. I didn't think it mattered how I phrased it. You told people we asked you, I said. You told people I agreed. I assumed you would eventually, Linda snapped. Any reasonable mother would. That was it. I stepped forward, my hands shaking, my voice raw. I woke up stitched together and bleeding, I said. I woke up asking if my baby was alive. And 2 weeks later, I found out you'd erased the only thing I had left of my grandmother, the woman who raised me. The room went quiet again, but this time it was different. Heavy. Emotional. I didn't get to hold her first. I continued. I didn't get to say her name when she was born. And you took advantage of that. Linda's eyes filled with tears. I was trying to help. No, Daniel said firmly. You were trying to control. Linda turned to him, desperate. Daniel, please. Say something. He looked at her like he didn't recognize her. You broke our trust, he said. You broke the law. And you lied about it for months. Someone near the back spoke up. Why didn't you just apologize? Linda's mouth fell open. Apologize? For choosing a better name? That was the moment everything collapsed. Margaret straightened. This conversation is over. Linda laughed hysterically. You're all turning against me because of a name? No, Margaret said quietly. Because you refused to take responsibility. Linda's breathing became erratic. She grabbed at the hem of her blouse, then suddenly yanked it over her head and threw it onto the floor. I'm done, she screamed. You all just wait. You'll regret this. She stormed toward the door, tears streaming down her face, shoes slapping against the floor. No one followed her. Not one person. The door slammed, echoing through the house. I stood there, shaking, my baby warm and real against my chest. For the first time since I'd woken up in that hospital bed, I felt something loosen inside me. The truth was out, and Linda could never take it back. The room stayed quiet long after the door slammed shut. No one knew what to say. Plates sat untouched. Someone finally cleared their throat and asked if I needed water. I nodded, even though my hands were still shaking too much to lift the glass. Daniel stayed close to me, one arm around my shoulders, the other steadying the baby carrier. I'm so sorry, Margaret said softly. I had no idea it went this far. Others echoed her words, apologies, disbelief, shock. A few people admitted they'd felt uncomfortable with Linda's story, but hadn't wanted to cause drama by questioning her. Hearing that hurt, but it also helped me understand how she'd gotten away with controlling people for so long. That evening, my phone started buzzing. Texts, missed calls, voicemails. Linda swung wildly between rage and self-pity. One message accused me of turning her family against her. Another said Daniel had chosen his wife over his own mother. Then came the threat. You've humiliated me. I'll be speaking to a lawyer. For a split second, fear crept in. Then Daniel picked up his phone and calmly forwarded the messages to our attorney, the same one who'd helped us fix the birth certificate. An hour later, we got the response. She doesn't have a case, the lawyer said. Truth is an absolute defense. And you have documentation. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. The next day, Daniel and I sat at the kitchen table and wrote everything down.
No unsupervised visits.
Our daughter's correct name, every time. No posting photos or announcements without permission. No undermining our parenting choices. If any boundary was crossed, visits would stop immediately. It felt harsh. It felt necessary. When we emailed the list to Linda, she didn't respond right away. I stared at my inbox for hours, my stomach twisting. 2 days later, a short message came through. I acknowledge your rules.
No apology. No worms.
But it was the first time she hadn't tried to argue. I looked down at my daughter sleeping peacefully in my arms and realized something important. This wasn't about winning. It was about protecting her. And for the first time since her birth, I finally felt like I was doing that. The corrected birth certificate arrived on a quiet Thursday afternoon. I stood in the hallway holding the envelope for a long time before opening it, my heart pounding like it was bracing for another blow. When I finally unfolded the paper and saw the name printed clearly at the top, Ella May, my knees gave out. I sat down right there on the floor and cried. Not the sharp, angry tears I'd shed for months. These were slow, relieved tears, the kind that come when something precious is finally returned to you. Daniel came home to find me sitting against the wall, clutching the paper like it might disappear. He didn't say anything. He just sat down next to me, took Ella from her carrier and whispered her name over and over.
Ella Mai. Ella Mai.
That night, I held my daughter close and thought about the story she'd grow up with. Not the story where her grandmother took something that didn't belong to her, but the story where her parents fought hard for her identity. Linda didn't disappear from our lives completely. She stayed at a distance, careful now, quieter than before. I don't know if she truly changed or if she simply learned that control had consequences. What I do know is this. I learned that silence can be mistaken for permission. That peace built on fear isn't peace at all. And that becoming a mother sometimes means standing up, not just for your child, but for yourself. One day, Ella will ask how she got her name. And when she does, I'll tell her the truth. That it was chosen with love. That it was worth fighting for. And that no one, no matter who they are, had the right to take it away.